Hi everybody, I'm Tony E at Show IP Interface Brief, and today is day 38 of the 100 Days of Labbing journey. And I'm on earlier than I normally am. Normally I don't post till nearly midnight or after midnight, but it is 10:30 p.m. here on the East Coast of the great U.S. And I'm tired, so I want to wrap up for the night. But a couple of important things have happened in just a short period of time regarding my studying and how to attack this, and we're always looking for improvements. So based on some of the work I did yesterday, which was control plane policing, led me down a path of uncovering the giant confusing world of QoS. And QoS is not something I ever deal with, so I have no practical experience. I have only fundamentals from written materials that I studied for passing the CCIE written, and I have very little lab experience. In fact, I don't remember completing the QoS section in the INE Workbook as I worked through it in preparing before when I was working through the workbook. So anyhow, I figured... I took my kids to swim lessons this evening, and while I was sitting there, looking in from where the parents look, I opened up the INE Workbook and started looking for the QoS section, which is called MQC, which is Modular Quality of Service Commands. I think that's what that stands for. Modular Quality of Service. Anyhow, I did the first lab, which was classification and marking, and having never actually sat down and done it, I was able to work my way through it with relative ease, and so I got this lab correct. So when I do the labs, this is actually the first time that I've done a lab from the workbook, which is one of the advanced technology labs, in a long time, a really, really, really long time. And you know what? I really enjoyed it. I really love these labs. I love the labs that they do. I love the sort of critical thinking that's needed and the logical thinking that's needed to sort of work the lab over top of the topology that they have. And then the explanation under what is the answer key is really top notch. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure other vendors' workbooks have just as good or better explanations. I don't really know. I know that I've worked my way most of the way through the workbook, and I've enjoyed it, and I haven't touched it in a long time, and man, was I happy to get back into it, because it was explaining and breaking down QoS and sort of peeling back some little nuggets of information that I don't think I would have gotten out of Cisco documentation. So I had a lot of fun. I did that lab, and then I started on the next lab, which was bandwidth reservations and class-based weighted fair queuing. And actually, I didn't complete this one. So QoS is still very foreign to me, but that's why I want to go through these labs. So you're probably asking yourself, why after, I think we're on day 38 now, why after 38 days of labbing, am I going back to the workbook? What is my plan? Why do this? Why didn't I start off in the workbook? I had worked my way mostly through the workbook, and I wanted to start exposing myself to the large labs as part of the workbook, and other vendors as well. I have some Cisco 360 or Cisco expert level credits to burn, then I'll be burning those on some of their large labs as well. So it took a long time to get through most of the INE workbook, like a really long time. And I didn't want to just sort of rehash that because studying each individual technology is good and helpful, and you need to do it. But there's more value in stitching all of those technologies together. And that's what I wanted to spend my 100 days of labbing on, is exposing myself to the large labs where I get to stitch these technologies together. In doing so, over the past 37 days and the many large labs that I have done on the weekends, I have uncovered lots of nuggets of technologies and information that I don't know very well, things that I'm not very efficient on or I don't know very well. One of those things is a giant black hole of knowledge for me is QoS. I don't know hardly the basics on QoS. Admittedly, I'm probably at a basic CCNA level on QoS. And for me, that's not going to cut it. I need to be better than that. If I intend to earn my CCIE numbers, I expect to have expert level exposure to these technologies. And that's what I'm trying to do here. So I figured anytime that there's been technologies that I didn't perform well on in the large labs, I would target those by building my own labs. I really like building my own labs. Sort of gives me the freedom to mock things up. Also, I use whiteboards behind me, and I get to draw crazy topologies and just overlay them over top of physical topologies, and it's really just a lot of fun, you know. And today, I just said, you know what? Let me see what INE has to offer. Let me go through the QoS labs. That should give me a really good exposure. And so that's what I did. So I went ahead and launched the INE topology. It's 10 routers and 4 switches, although the QoS section here doesn't need the switches, so I was able to keep them powered off. I did this local on my local EVE-NG, which is, you know, hosted on a little PC down in the basement. And I have more than enough resources to host the basic INE topology. And so I'm going to save my credits or my, you know, my $300 free from Google for the large labs that I do on the weekends. So I'll keep doing the large labs, the ones that require 20 routers. I'll keep those focused in the cloud. But these small labs, these advanced technology labs, I'm just do it, you know, on the ones down here, and therefore I can keep as much funds running in Google Cloud as I can. I had a lot of fun doing it. The explanations were really good. I really enjoy the workbook. I've touted it enough. Anyone who's ready for starting their CCIE journey, I definitely say go ahead and invest in the workbook. It's $300. Use the promo code NEW10 and get 10% off. And build the topology and work it, man. Just work it. Okay, so how does this change my outlook and my strategy moving forward? It does change my strategy a little bit. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to spend the rest of this week working through the QoS section, and I don't know if it'll take me the rest of the week. I think there's probably 15 or 20 QoS labs. It might take me the rest of the week. It might not. I'm going to continue to work through the QoS. I'm going to need to take a break from QoS and make sure that I don't forget about all of the stuff that I had worked hard to study on. OSPF authentication, DMVPN, IPsec, multi-protocol BGP, MPLS, LDP authentication, you know, sort of all of these other things. I still need to keep them fresh. You know, I kind of think of it like juggling, and not juggling 3 balls in the air. But when you see like a clown or someone juggling when they're juggling like 15 ping pong balls at one time, it's a matter of just keeping all of those technologies up in the air and not forgetting about one long enough so it drops, because that's when you get sour on some technology. So instead, you just have to make sure you pay attention to all of the things at the same time and keep all of the balls up in the air. And so that's what I'm going to do. So moving forward, beyond this week, beyond next week, I think what I want to do when I hit the 50-day mark, which is 13 days away. Oh my God. I hope I'm not writing a check my ass can't cash. But I think starting at the 50-day mark, I want to start the workbook over at the beginning and basically just sprint through the labs. I want to make sure I have a very well-rounded experience with the advanced technologies. And I want to do that throughout the week. And on the weekends, I want to continue with my large labs, the full-scale labs, the practice labs, the troubleshooting labs, the foundation labs, the Cisco 360 stuff. I have some Narbic labs. I want to be able to do those large-scale labs on the weekends. But throughout the week, I think I just want to sprint through the workbook. A lot of that stuff I should be very familiar with, and I should be able to sprint through it. Some of the topics I haven't covered before, like QoS, and it's really going to slow me down. So I want the exposure, and I think that's going to be my plan. Because I tell you what, guys, I didn't know what to expect out of this 100 days of labbing journey. I didn't know what I was getting into when I started it. I didn't know how to execute it. I didn't know how to make it worth my time, worth my while, and how to get the most out of it. This just sort of evolves. So here's my lesson learned after 38 days. The CCIE journey is not about making a plan and sticking to it. Rather, it's about making a plan and adapting and adjusting to circumstances and still pushing forward. And that's what I'm trying to do, right? I think I recognize that building my own labs is fun, and I learn a lot. And most of the stuff that I've executed in my career, I owe to myself for labbing at home. Not using a workbook, not using anyone's plan, but just like, how does this work? Let's throw some routers and switches together and see how this works, and then being able to execute things in the field. I owe that all to myself. But in studying for the CCIE lab, I think there's going to be more value in working somebody else's material where the topology and the labs are unfamiliar. So it's as if you're testing yourself every day. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to continue to work the QoS section of the INE workbook during the week. On my weekends, I'm going to continue to do the large labs. So I will likely try to do the troubleshooting lab number 2 this weekend, and or work the couple of troubleshooting tickets that I didn't solve last weekend. And then as we approach the 50-day marker, which is the halfway mark in this journey, I think I'm going to start the workbook over. And I hope to be able to complete the workbook in 50 days. I don't know. Is that too much? Are there too many labs? Is it not possible? I don't know. I have no idea. But I know there's only one way I can stay sharp on so many technologies, and that is working them. And so I think that's what I want to do, because I see a lot of value in the workbook. I really do value the workbook, and I want to make sure I extract all of the information I can get out of it. I want to extract all of the knowledge and experience of the people who wrote it and put it together. And after I work through the workbook, I'll do another workbook. Narvik has some great materials out there. One of my good study buddies here, mentors, who may be watching this later tonight. He might be watching it live. I'm not sure. I know he's working some Narvik materials. Man, Narvik's got good materials. A lot of vendors have good materials out there, and but you can't consume everything at once, man. The CCIE world is overwhelming with all the different vendors and all the different ways you can lab. I mean, I'm running 2 EVE-NG labs. I run locally and one in the cloud, and it's a little bit of overhead of my time and energy spent trying to sync up labs. You know, as I build a topology here, upload it to the cloud. If I modify a topology there, download it back here so everything's in sync. Maybe I should just use rsync, but the one in the cloud isn't up all the time. I don't know. Maybe I should automate that a little bit. I don't know if I have time to automate it. It takes away from my CCIE study time. What am I thinking about? So it's really hard, the abundance of material that's out there, to really stay focused on any one thing. So that's why I'm trying to just focus on just one vendor's workbook and work my way through it. And you know what? If after the 100 days, if I'm not ready to take the CCIE lab, then that'll be a perfect way to pivot and do somebody else's workbook. I probably won't do another 100 days without taking a lab, but I might do an extended 25 days or something if I'm not ready. So that's where we're at. So I'm changing the course of, I'm changing my path a little bit, and I think it's going to be for the better. And you know what? If after 2 weeks this doesn't work out for me, we can change paths again. We can do something else. That's what this is about. Change paths, adapt, move forward. So that's it, guys. I did the marking and classification lab very well. I found one of the things that, and I don't know sort of what it, because I'm not exposed to QoS, so maybe someone can leave me a comment below or reach us out in the Discord if anyone wants to join our Discord server. The link is below in the description of today's video. if anyone who does QoS regularly wants to give me sort of what is best practice, I'm kind of confused on why do we do marking and classification outbound? Why don't we do marking and classification as packets arrive on an interface and sort of mark it before it passes through the router? Instead, we mark it on the outbound. And I kind of feel like for me, it's counterintuitive because when I think about marking and classification, and then this is sort of a loose analogy, so it's kind of a stretch, you have to bear with me. I think of ASAs, right? And typically, where do you apply an ACL? You apply it on ingress on an interface. So when I think about, you know, how do I want to treat packets as they're received? Typically, you apply an ACL inbound on an interface. And I feel that marking and classification should be applied inbound on an interface, but rather what I've seen in examples, it's often applied outbound. And I don't know sort of what is best practice. You know, what would you ever do marking and classification inbound? Because all the examples I see don't. But could you? Is there an inherent reason why you wouldn't? I don't know. I would love some feedback on that. Please leave me a comment below. Reach us on the Discord. We got some good discussion over there to continue the discussion. And that's where we're at. So I just want to get more familiar with QoS and knock this thing out, man. I'm really excited to be learning something new, something new to me, some new exposure to myself, which is QoS. I get kind of burned out on, you know, pushing around OSPF and EIGRP, and believe me, I know the well is deep with OSPF, and there's a lot to learn. It gets kind of boring just sort of looking at the same old stuff, you know. So I like the new material. Guys, that's it. We're going to wrap it up short and sweet. Thank you for hanging with me, and I look forward to another awesome 72 days of labbing. No. 62 days of labbing. Oh my God, there's only 12 days left till we're halfway over.